wanted to update you on what's going on with Kawhi Leonard, the basketball player. About 11 months ago, we discussed Kawhi Leonard, a really incredibly good basketball player, a generational talent. And he got signed to the LA Clippers by Steve Ballmer. You might know him as this guy.
Developers.
Okay?
Developers.
One of the early Microsoft employees, former CEO. Developers. He's one of the richest men in the world. Bounces around between rank 7 and rank 10, but clearly a richest man. And by the way, in a league where all of the owners are almost billionaire, I mean, almost every owner is a billionaire. He is richer than every other NBA owner combined. He is the richest man in the NBA. The sweatiest man in the NBA too. And so, as happens in sports leagues, there's an advantage to having wealthier backed owners. They can pay more for players and eventually have super teams that are impossible to stop. The NBA, long ago, institute what is called a salary cap to try and get around that. The salary cap basically says that no team can spend more than a certain amount each year, based on revenue of the league, on their salaries to keep everybody at somewhat parity. Here's an example from a few years ago. They kind of want everybody in the league to be within this band. By the way, I found out while researching this, there is a salary minimum that they had to institute because teams like the Detroit Pistons back then were literally trying to pay people nothing. And for a while, it was just, if you spend more than this amount, there's a thing called a luxury tax where you have to pay extra. You have to pay basically, double your money on each amount of salary to the league as a tax. And it's disincentivizing. But he is so rich, he could get around that. So recently, they added these things called the first and second apron. Now, these aprons add extra penalties if you spend this much on salary. When you cross the second apron, you start losing draft picks. You start having certain restrictions on who you can and can't trade. There's problems. So it's no matter how much money you have, you really don't want to be up past the second apron or going in that direction. So the salary cap is the rules to try and keep the teams somewhat balanced. But if you're Steve Ballmer and you have the second most popular LA team and you want to make a big splash and you're building a multi-billion-dollar stadium, well, you don't want to play by the rules. You don't want to sit around and try to draft smartly over years to suddenly build a good squad. You want to win now. And so Steve Ballmer allegedly had a plan. I am going to get my star player, Kawhi Leonard, to re-sign with us for less than he would normally be able to charge, so that we are under the salary cap and we can get other stars like Paul George. That's the idea. That was his trick. How did he do this? Well, this was the great Pulitzer Prize winning reporting by Pablo Torre. 11 months ago, we reported on this. He found out that there was a green bank startup called Aspiration that planted trees with the excess money in your bank, basically is the idea. And because Aspiration was a failing startup behind the scenes, Steve Ballmer stepped in and wrote them massive checks to keep them afloat. And then they signed a sponsorship deal with Kawhi Leonard and paid him $20, $30, $40 million, okay? So he gave the money to the Green Bank, the bank gave it to Kawhi Leonard. Now, what made this such a smoking gun, what made this reporting so powerful by Pablo Torre, is he found out, first of all, a direct paper trail between LA Clippers signing a deal with Aspiration signing Kawhi Leonard, the money moving, he made all that. But he also found out that Kawhi Leonard famously did nothing for them. So Aspiration spent $7 million on Leo DiCaprio to do a documentary. They spent $8 million on Robert Downey Jr. to do a documentary. And they spent $40 million on Kawhi Leonard to do nothing. He did no Instagram posts. He didn't plant a single tree. He didn't make a tweet. He did nothing. It was a complete no-show contract, and yet he got more than every other celebrity combined. And he's not really a personable guy. So obviously you look at this and you go, okay, there is no other way to look at this. Clearly, this guy is circumventing the salary cap, but he denied it. He's rich. He's got this background. He went, no, I didn't do that, okay? He said, it's not up to me what Aspiration does with its sponsorships, okay? I just gave them money. Who they choose to sponsor is none of my business. If they think Kawhi would be a great fit, that's their call. It's a horrible defense, because it requires you to be an absolute child to believe, all right? But that's the defense. And everybody was hoping there would be some kind of punishment for Steve Ballmer. That was the idea. Somebody better punish this guy. Well, the NBA stepped in and they said, okay, you know what? We're going to investigate. We are going to get to the bottom of this. Don't worry. Thank you, Pablo Torre. We'll take it from here. And they hired a high-powered law firm, Wachtell and Lipton, and they said, okay, we're going to look into it. And then months passed and months passed and months passed. And now it's been basically 11 months. And they've been like not saying anything, not saying anything, not saying anything, until finally ESPN breaks the story yesterday that the NBA is about to release its findings. Now, we don't have their exact findings yet, but we have what ESPN is standing by their reporting of. And they said the NBA is about to release that they have no evidence Ballmer funneled money to Leonard via sponsors. He's going to get off scot-free. We waited 11 months with all the evidence wide in the open, infinite amount of ways you could tackle this, including Pablo Torres. He had people from these companies come on with a voice changer in their face disguise, but admit on camera, hey, yeah, I worked at Aspiration. We were funneling money. Like everyone there was confused why we were sponsoring Kawhi. And then when you ask about it, it's because, yeah, it's to help out, to help out Steve Ballmer. Okay, the evidence is overwhelming, but the NBA is about to find them not guilty. And there's like a side of you that thinks this is pretty fucking obvious kowtowing to the richest billionaire in the league who nobody wants to piss off because he just spent billions on a brand new stadium. That's what it seems like. But what's extra funny is that right before this is about to release, Pablo Torre, who did the original reporting and has done 14-part series over the years, dropped another update where he uncovered Kawhi's other hidden deal. He found out that not only were they funneling money to Aspiration, but he found out that the Jumbotron company Daktronics, this is a company that makes those giant screens for stadiums. That's what they do. And they were having a pretty tough time in their business. It was doing worse and worse and worse and worse. And then right here, they sign a deal with Steve Ballmer to do a gigantic series of Jumbotrons for his brand new stadium. And then all of a sudden, the company bounces back. And so it seems like Steve Ballmer has a lot of influence. He basically stepped in to save Daktronics. Okay, maybe he just helped a struggling company out. Maybe he didn't get anything in return. Maybe they just made a good product and he bought it and that started rejuvenating their fortunes. But what's interesting is, right at this exact same time is when Steve Ballmer is doing the negotiations with Kawhi Leonard for his renewed contract. And what Pablo Torre found out is that Daktronics signed a secret no-show sponsorship deal with Kawhi Leonard at the same time for millions of dollars. Whoa. So that's two separate deals around the same time that this basketball player gets signed to, where he doesn't have to do anything, post anything, announce anything, or show up to anything. And both of those companies are connected very closely with Steve Ballmer exactly when he's doing contract negotiations. That's just very interesting. And this one's even more egregious because unlike Aspiration, which sponsored some celebrities, Daktronics has never sponsored public celebrities because they are a Jumbotron company that only sells to billionaires building stadiums. Why would they hire Kawhi Leonard to do nothing? They're not public facing. So anyway, this paper trail has become ever more obvious. These deals have started to add up. Again, he got more people on camera. I wonder if I can get a clip actually for you. Here's an insider from Daktronics.
This was talked about just openly within the organization and from people working on the project that Kawhi was a spokesperson for Daktronics. And it was just the biggest thing. It was just openly joked about within people working on the project that knew about this, as it was 1000% a way to circumvent the salary cap.
But the NBA says there is no evidence at all. There's no evidence that this guy has done anything, even remotely untoward. By the way, the Clippers in 2015, prior to all this happening, did get fined for salary cap evasion. They've been caught doing it before. And yet now that it's bigger and higher profile, they say nothing. The update is that it seems like he's going to get away with it. And what's wild to me, what is so, I don't know, maybe it's a sports fan thing, but it feels so bootlicky, is if you go on certain parts of the internet, especially Clippers fans, they're like all celebrating. Like, they're like, fuck Pablo Torre. Never a doubt our boy Steve was innocent. They had this photo. Big Balmy beat the case. Bro is the 9th richest man in the world. I thought this one was funny too. How it feels to be a Clippers fan right now when it's fucking OJ. It's crazy though. And look, I'll be honest with you. There's like a lot of NBA stories I could cover too. I want to talk about what's going on with the Lakers and Bob Iger and Josh Kushner buying the team. But what's wild is it's just, I think this story is hitting a lot of people. It's really taken over the NBA subreddit. Everyone's talking about it. And I think people are extra frustrated about it because it's like symbolic of what's happening in life outside of sports, which is just this complete lack of any even minor consequences for obvious bad behavior by rich people. Nobody is in any doubt as to what happened here. The coincidences are too obvious. Nobody thinks that Daktronics suddenly decided to break bad and give Kawhi Leonard millions of dollars to do nothing. And so it's making people angry. It's making people just like, I think, frustrated that this is seeped into what is sort of an escapism thing, which is sports. Whether they'll do anything about it, I don't know. Like, I'm pissed about all this. Will I still watch Luka play on the Lakers? Yeah, probably. I don't know. Maybe. I can enjoy it. But it frustrates me. It's very, very annoying. And what's extra problematic is the NBA has a history with this back in the day, and they punished it appropriately. So like when this happened to the Timberwolves, and they circumvented the salary cap to sign Joe Smith, and they got him a Lexus deal and set it up, they got seriously punished. They lost 5 first-round picks. They got a multi-million-dollar fine. They voided the contract. The owner got suspended, and the GM had to take a leave of absence. There was like a serious punishment. Then they walked a little bit of it back, but like literally it was like a signal to the league, like, hey, don't do this. But now that Steve Ballmer has done it and is making this face and nobody cares, it's like an open signal that everybody should be cheating. There is no punishment. Salary cap does not matter. The richest teams will get all the star players. It undermines even the like veneer of trust you might have. It's fucked, dude. I think it's fucked. The aprons won't matter. Like, and what's crazy is all the NBA players have almost like adapted to this. If you'll notice, if you're an NBA fan, almost every NBA player is starting a podcast now. My understanding is that podcasts are one of the best ways to circumvent a salary cap because they can have anybody sponsor your podcast. So if you have a podcast, even with no fucking views that you just regularly do, people can circumvent the salary cap by fucking dumping money into it. So it's just, I think it's just whack. I think it's just whack. Now, I will say this, the NBA did come out and say, I wonder if I have an image of this somewhere, there's some flaws in ESPN's reporting here, and they'll all be handled in due time when they release the full report. However, ESPN doubled down and said they trust their reporting and they're confident that the NBA will not be punishing Steve Ballmer. So my only hope is this. After this report came out yesterday, he hasn't done a new episode since then, but Pablo Torre came out and said, I might have another thing to release. So the only hope is that right as the NBA drops their final report and says he's completely innocent, that is when Pablo Torre drops his final bullet in the chamber and reveals even more obvious truths that they've been lying. That's what we're kind of hoping. I don't know what else could be in the tank. It feels like he's really mined all of these opportunities. How much more could Kawhi have gotten paid? But that's the hope. That is the fucking hope. And that's where we're at, dude, is that's the update on what's happening with Kawhi Leonard in the NBA. But shout out to Pablo Torre, who's done some truly incredible work. I've really enjoyed watching him break this down. What's extra funny is that he had Mark Cuban on when this first broke, and Mark Cuban defended Steve Ballmer, probably because Mark Cuban did this himself when he was head of the Mavs. And he caught him in some lies now that so much more evidence has come out. So like the way he staggered it has been really good at like people thinking he's used all his ammo and they say some shit that gets proven wrong. I think if you're listening, Adam Silver, I know you watch the Big A broadcast, you got to do some punishment. Okay. The world might be able to move on if you suspended him for a few months, do something. But the fact that you're going to tell us with a straight face that he did nothing wrong is so fucked up. And because, guys, you may not know this is not a crime Circumventing the salary cap is not a crime. Like, the police can't do anything. It's just the league and the millions and millions of fans that want some level of idea that it's kind of fair. To do nothing is just an open signal that it doesn't matter anymore. It's a Mickey Mouse. Yeah, anyway, that's the update. Hope you enjoyed. D1 pocket watcher. I'm not a pocket washer, dude. Oh, wait, that's a good thing to end on. Fran, that's a great question. Actually, I'm glad you asked that. If you guys don't watch basketball, you might be asking, all right, well, all of this scamming they did, all of this backroom deals, Daktronics, Aspiration, there was a soccer club, all of this stuff they did to funnel money to Kawhi, did it work? Did they get a championship? The answer, fuck no.